Sun's gone down for another day. Time to put away the chainsaw, get into the virus. Today I want to talk about the effects section of the virus. Very powerful. I haven't seen very many videos on it, so I thought I'd do a little bit of a... Anybody know what that is? Here's something. Here's a little trick. Your new best friend. I learned about this back. I used to be an audio engineer, both live in the studio. And you always had one of these at hand because the idea is you want to be able to get in and clean between the knobs and the switches to make sure you don't get dust into your faders and into your potentiometers. And you don't want to change any of the settings. This is the way to do it. Having one of these around the studio or in your live kit is a lifesaver. So the first thing I want to look at is the delay section. You could use an external delay like a pedal or an external device. The benefit of having it on board, first of all, it's programmable per patch. And secondly, you can have it synced to your main clock, as in your beats per minute. If you have an arpeggiator, if you have LFOs happening, you can sync all of your delay with that stuff. So that's huge. The other benefit of having your effects built in is that when you call up a patch, it has all of your effects on it. And many of the settings on the virus are much more involved than any of the pedals that they emulate. So let's go ahead and listen to some of this stuff right now. I'm going to start just with a little marimba sound, something percussive so we can hear stuff. I'm going to look at the delay settings. So just going to start feeding some into the delay. And then, first of all, you have your feedback, which is how many times it repeats. Now, if you look at the display here, you'll see it says 1 of 4, which means there are 4 pages of delay settings, and you step through them with a left and right thing that you can't see just off screen here. The coloration here is what type of EQ you get with the repeats. So to a positive value, they have more top end as they decay. And when I go to a negative value, you'll hear the top end roll off. And at 0, they're continual. The other thing that you have here is depth. So here, so what you're hearing here is the delay. The time of the delay is being modulated by an oscillator. And you can also use different types of modulators like sample and hold. Anyway, so you can get a lot of different types of effects there. Other than just straight delay. So you can hear this is a stereo delay. And if I turn the feedback up, once again, I can set different values for the left and the right. modulation. Here's the longest delay you can have, which is just under 700 milliseconds, so 7/10 of a second. So now I'm going to move to the reverb settings. The send. So the selections are ambience, small room, large room, and hall. So very subtle difference, but there are algorithms that affect the top end and the bottom end of the decay separately. In any of these settings, you have a time, which is the total length. And your dampening. Here's a setting with no damping. Here's that same setting with 50% dampening. And 100%, so the top end will be rolled off over time. There's also pre-delay for every reverb. That's the amount of time between when you strike the note and the first time you hear any of the reverb signal. Coloration, which is top end accentuated or top end rolled off. The longest reverb time you have is 127, which is basically infinite reverb. It does decay over time, but it's very long. And then you can change that with your dampening settings. So there's a long reverb, but with a very subtle tone. Here's a basic ambient setting. Then we'll go to a small room. Large room. And a hall setting. The other thing that happens in this effects area is you have EQ. So you have low, frequency, and gain. So you can hear how I'm bumping up the bottom end there. And then you can pick what frequency. You can do a positive or a negative value. So you can go up to 16 dB of boost or minus 16 dB of cut. And you have that on low, mid, and high. The mid is actually quasi-parametric, in which you can select the Q, or the amount, the size of the cut or boost. Here's the mid. And it's sweepable. You can pick the frequency you want. And then when we go to the high, if I crank up the top end on this sound, if I crank up the top end of the sound, you can hear how I can boost or cut the top end. So remember that this is part of what's programmable per patch. So on every sound that you make, you can shape the EQ, not just the effects. The other thing I want to look at here is the distortion and analog simulators. Let's take a look at it. I'm going to find a different sound. So here I'm starting with a basic, almost a sine wave. In these settings, I can pick different types of what they call distortion. So let's listen to them. I've got these settings at about 35% of intensity and 35% mix, so they're pretty subtle, but you'll hear the difference. Here are the overdrives. I'm just gonna go through a few of these settings so you can hear the extreme way that you can affect the sound. So you can hear there's a lot of ways you can shape the sound when you consider that what we're listening to is almost just a sine wave. Very powerful. So the other thing we can look at here is the analog simulation. So what this does is simulates kind of more like an analog oscillator and filter. Just listen to the way this warms up the sound. Off, on. So that's one of the settings. One of them is this one. You can hear how it immediately makes it a wider sound in the stereo field. And you can pick the frequency that it operates within. This one's called Speaker Cabinet, and it kind of emulates the sound of a mic speaker. Once again, you can sweep the frequencies. Here's the dry sound. And then with the speaker emulator, really brings out the mids and takes down the bottom end a little bit. The other thing we're going to look at here is the chorus. So there are about maybe 8 or 9 different types of chorus, and each of them has multiple parameters, so much more powerful than any standard chorus pedal. You've got your rate, your depth, feedback, and then the total mix. There's classic, vintage, hyper chorus, air chorus, which really brings out more of a stereo field, and vibrato, which is not to be confused with tremolo. Tremolo is an amplitude change. Vibrato is an actual pitch change. So there's a chorus and off. The other thing you have is a phaser. So that's just a rough idea of what you can do with these effects, the programmable EQ, the distortion, and the analog setting. It is great to be able to program these per patch for a lot of different reasons. All of these features you can automate. So you can automate them with your DAW, or you can program them with the modulation matrix. You could use an LFO, you could use an envelope to modulate any of these things, whether it's the reverb time or the echo feedback. All of these things are programmable and modulatable. So you can have chorus and phaser and the analog boost and the distortion and delay and reverb and the 3 stages of EQ. All of these things are programmable per patch, and you can stack them. You can use all of these things. So let's turn on a few of these at once. We've got echo and delay. I'm going to add a little bit of chorus to that. You can also assign some of these parameters to these soft knobs. So in real time, if you want to be able to add echo, add reverb, you can do that without having to do any diving into the effects parameters. Now, I'm going back to this sound that has a little bit of chorus and a little bit of reverb. This knob has been assigned globally to the reverb time. So if I were playing live, I can just tweak this one knob and it will change the reverb decay time. Anyway, that's my overview of the effects of the virus. Hope you enjoyed it.